Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Director of Program Management, Windows User Experience, Jensen Harris.
Hi, everyone. Exciting stuff this morning, right? Yeah. So it is a great pleasure to be able to kick off the 3 big picture talks this afternoon that stand between you and your new PC. On behalf of the team who has been working on the product that you saw and you're going to see this week for the last 2 years, it's such an incredible moment for us. I feel very proud to be able to finally share what we've been doing with you. The first of the big pictures, the one that I'm going to be giving, is really about as you start to envision the apps, the Metro-style apps you're going to build, what are the characteristics that are going to make those apps great? My team worked on the UI that you saw demoed this morning. I'm certainly going to be doing some deep dives into aspects of the UI, but I also want to help you leave with an understanding of some of the principles and philosophies that led to the creation of this new Metro-style UI. So it's both going to be demos, but it's also going to be some of the thoughts behind it and how you can infuse that same design thinking into the Metro-style apps that you create. So you heard this morning about Windows Reimagined. And it's necessary to not just reimagine Windows, but also to reimagine the apps that run within Windows. Because without apps, well, there's nothing. And when I think about this, this opportunity, let me actually come over here and do a demo. So you saw this morning. Bring it up on the screen here, number 48. There we go. This is the lock screen. And you think about that this is this incredibly personal place. It has a picture that I love. It has my daughter Elsa. It has the next place I need to be. It has how many emails I've gotten since last I was on my PC. So I just turn on the PC, and at a glance, everything I care about is there. You saw I swipe up, and again, I have a picture that I love, something that I care about, my daughter. I can draw on her to log on, just do 3 gestures, and I've logged onto the system. And here we are in the start screen. And just take a second and look at this. I know that you've seen this before. But it's alive with activity. It's personal. It has the things that I care about on it. It has the apps that I care about on it. It has, content. It has everything that makes my PC mine on one screen. And then let me switch back to the slides for a second. And you think about this amazing experience, the start screen. And you think about what it looks like without apps. It's nothing. It doesn't matter unless it has the right apps. And so in this gap is opportunity. And as you heard Stephen talk about this morning, this is the single biggest development opportunity in the history of the world. There are more Windows PCs than on any other device. We have the biggest ecosystem. And you guys are the first ones in to learn how to use the platforms, the tools, and the UI to build great apps. And when you get your PC tonight and you run back to your hotel and you turn it on, you're going to go to the store icon, the store tile, and you're going to touch it. And this is what you're going to see coming soon. Why? We don't have any apps yet. You guys are going to fill this up. Some of you are going to get rich. Some of you are going to build apps that are going to be used by hundreds of millions of people, the kind of scale that only big companies can reach today. So the question I want to ask is, what is going to distinguish the apps that are going to succeed from the apps that don't have as good a chance? That's the opportunity. And so over the next 90 minutes, I'm going to try to walk you through just some tips and tricks, some ways to think about Windows 8 to help you build apps that are the best apps you can possibly build. And so I'm going to walk you through a list of 8 things that I think make a great Metro-style app. So the first one is what I call Metro-style design. So here is a typical Win32-based RSS reader. It's fairly simple in terms of the features it has. It's got the tree view on the left. It's got the list view. It's got some buttons to do things. And then look at that same experience reimagined as a Metro-style app. It's beautiful. It's less Chrome. The focus is on the content. It's immersive. And I want to talk you through some of the ways that you can create this same experience in your app. First thing I want to think about is the silhouette of a Metro-style app. The silhouette is sort of your mind's eye of what a Metro-style app looks like before you even know what the app is. So here's a couple of examples. I'm going to flip through some of the apps that we demoed this morning and that you're going to be able to use on your PCs that you get tonight. So here's the News app. Here's Tweetorama. Here's Stocks. Here's Socialite. And here is the template that you'll get when you go to Visual Studio for the first time and create a new app. This is what you're going to get for free. So what did you notice as you went through those? Well, there's a couple things you might have noticed. The first one might have been that in the upper left-hand corner, the title was spaced exactly the same amount from the upper left. So as I switched between News and Tweetorama and Stocks and Socialite, everything stayed in exactly the same place. All of the apps were harmonious. There's not a jarring effect as I move between them. They use the same exact font face and the exact same font weight. If you pull away the content and just look at the text, many of you know Metro is founded on clean, beautiful typography. All of the text in the system is aligned to the same typographic grid, meaning that the baseline, as you match up across different apps, lines up. And again, this little attention to detail makes the entire system more harmonious. And so you might be thinking, that seems like a lot of work. Don't know if it really matters. Well, the good news is, if you just use the templates that you get with Visual Studio and with the tools that you're going to be getting today, then you get great, almost for free. So here's an example. So you're going to come into Visual Studio today, and you're going to create a grid application. This template is available in all of our different languages. So whether you're using C++ or C# or HTML, JavaScript, you'll get the same type of experience. And this is what a new application screen looks like. I've not written a line of code. I've just gone into Visual Studio, and I get this template for free. Now imagine that I've taken this template, and I just hook it up to backend data. I hook it up to RSS feeds. I don't do anything other than take what I have and just plumb the back end of it. And I get this. The beautiful, immersive RSS reader that you're going to be using tonight. Again, here's the grid, and here's the app. Part of that template is also this collection view that when you drill down into a page, it comes up. And here's the reading page within the RSS feed. Again, here's what you get for free, and with a little bit of work on your part to hook up the data, tweak the styling a little bit, you get something absolutely beautiful. So using the templates is really, really important, and will get you so much for free. Another aspect of Metro-style design is content before Chrome. So this is Photoshop running on the desktop. How many of you use Photoshop? How many of you love Photoshop? Yeah, lots of people, right? Photoshop's a great app. One of the most popular apps on any platform. And I showed that to you to sort of point out that there's nothing wrong with Chrome. In its place, with the right kind of app, a rich app like Photoshop that's designed to be used with a mouse and with a keyboard, it's wonderful. It allows for dense layout of tools. It allows for precise layout of windows. It allows for you to get everything exactly the way you want and really revel in the tools, because that's what Photoshop is about. There's nothing, just because we have introduced a touch-first interface, there's nothing evil about mouse and keyboard. They're wonderful tools. The mouse is the best precision pointing device in the world. The keyboard, the physical keyboard, is the fastest way to enter text. It just is. So they're great tools. And so Chrome is great in its place. There's also times when you really, really want a dense layout of information where you want to have lots of control over your windows and you want to have lots of, lay out lots of things. When you're writing code, you like to have lots of things up at once. There's nothing wrong with that, except that's not the way Metro-style apps work. Metro-style apps have room to breathe. They're not about the Chrome, they're about the content. They are, in fact, as we said this morning, Chromeless. Let's take a second and look at this. Every single pixel, from the upper left-hand corner to the bottom right, is for your app. For years, Windows was always about adding stuff. We added bars and panes and doodads and widgets and gadgets and bars and stuff everywhere. And that's how we defined our UI, based on what new widgets we added. Now, we've receded into the background, and the app is sitting out there on the stage. Here's another example. Here is Internet Explorer 9 running a website on the desktop. And here's the same thing in IE 10. Again, every single pixel is there for you to use. This is really a huge opportunity. And how many of you have played with or own a Windows Phone? So a fair number of you. And a lot of some of the early thoughts that people had around the Metro design language that came out in the phone was that it could be a little bit plain, that everything was just white on black, and that it was not as inviting as other more vibrant UIs. Well, the thing that you have to keep in mind, as I show you the weather app that you're going to be playing with tonight, is that Metro is about clean typography and about content first, but it can also be beautiful and stunning. It can be broadcast quality. Imagine that you're watching a TV show. That's what an app can look like. As I switch between a different city, and this city happens to be raining, you can get that sense of switching between apps is as easy and fluid as switching between channels on the TV. And so Metro can be beautiful, but it has to be immersive. It has to have room for the content. And that means moving all of the Chrome off the screen. So to do that, I want to talk about the importance of the edge. So let me come back over here to my demo machine. This is one I showed you before. And I'm just going to launch a couple of apps. So I'm going to launch the news app that we've been looking at. And I'm going to launch weather. And those clouds are going fast. And I'm going to go launch Socialite here. And I'm going to launch the word hunt game, which is, I think, over here. And just for fun, to put pressure on me, let's see if I can find a word. Not. Okay. So here I am. I've launched 4 apps. And as you saw this morning, switching between them is just as simple as moving my finger in from the edge. You see, just totally fluid, totally easy. If I want to see, 2 things at once, it's very easy to bring it out, snap it in place. If I want Socialite actually to be over on the other side, very easy to just move it over, let it go, change the split point between the 2 snapped apps, and make it go away. And then when I go back to start, I just swipe in from the right side and choose start. So that's a reminder of how that looks. And as we switch back to the slide here, this is how to think about how the system works. This is to sort of fix the anatomy in your head. The left and the right edges are for system UI. The left edge is for back. We're going back to your previous apps. And the right edge are for charms. Charms is the name of the 5 icons on the right side. Those are all called charms. So there's a start charm and a search charm and a share charm, etc. And those 2 edges are reserved by Windows. Now let me switch back to the demo. And I'm going to go into IE for a second. So here I am in IE 10 again. And notice when I swipe my finger from the bottom, I get the app bar that has the address bar and back and forward and things like that at the bottom. And I get my new tabs at the top. So if I create a new tab, I can do that. I also could have, if I wanted to, swipe down from the top to bring up the same UI. So if I swipe down from the top, it brings up the tabs as well. So switching back to the sides now for a second, it's the same idea for the system that it is for the app. So the top and the bottom edges are for the app. And so this is for you to put your UI in, your tools, and your Chrome. And the top and the bottom do the same thing. So we don't want to have lots of like rocks to look under. So if you swipe up from the top or the bottom, it does exactly the same thing for the app. So when you think about how to actualize content over Chrome, it says don't clutter your canvas, your app, with controls all over the place. If you have a button or a control that is really, really important and frequent, sure, you can put it on the canvas. You should put play in your music app right there, because people are going to expect that. But everything else you want to put in the app bar that's brought up by one of the edge gestures. And why do this? Well, it means that as you switch between apps, you don't have to learn a different rock to look under in every single app. I don't know how frustrating it is to use phones and tablets and pads and all sorts of things out there, and every single app has invented a different way to get between their sort of reading or viewing mode and their get to the tools mode. So we just sort of said, how about we just come up with one simple, easy way to do that? And if all apps follow suit, then people will know how to use every app just out of the box. I also want to talk, as part of Metro Style Design, about comfort and touch. So some people have asked, why design touch first? And I think that you only have to look at how a child uses a computer, like what's natural to them. They're always going to reach for touch before they're going to reach for a mouse. And that's because it is more natural. It is more direct. You've got fingers and you've been using them your entire life. And so while the mouse is great, it is a level of indirection. And so we wanted to understand, as part of creating our point of view on how touch would work in Windows, how people use PCs, and specifically touch-first slate-type PCs, in the real world. So we did a lot of research where we followed people to their homes and we brought people into our labs as well, and just watched how they used existing products, Windows-based, et cetera, tablets. And one of the things that we found out as we thought of this, people use many different postures. Some people balance them on their knees, some people put them on tables, some people held them with two hands in front. And a posture that we saw end up being very, very common was that people would take a PC, a slate, and they would hold it in two hands. No matter how light it is, it's awkward to hold something in one hand. Your hand always ends up getting a little bit tired. And so we wanted to see, well, if that's a very common posture, a surprisingly common posture, in fact, maybe there was something that we could do in the UI to take advantage of that. So we started asking people to finger paint. So we got them little tubs of paint, and we just gave them pieces of paper that we put on top of the PCs they were using. And we said, just paint one color for the area that you can reach comfortably, and paint another color for the things that you can still reach but require a little bit of stretch. And we looked at big hands, we looked at small hands, and we traced their fingerprints. And we matched that up with data that we got about how big their hands were using a calciper, which is this scary medical device. It's silver, has a point on the end, and it can be used to figure out how big your hands are. And we entered all of this data that we learned into a program that actually helped generate heat maps for over a wide range of people where they could reach comfortably, not as comfortably, and really, really uncomfortably. And we started to lay that over our UI. We just looked at where should we position things so that people don't have to do a posture change. And it turns out that to design for comfort, you need to position things near the edge. It's not that people can't reach things in the middle of the screen. They can, but it requires a posture change. Either you support it, and then you reach in the middle, or you put it down for a second, and you do it. But it's not comfortable to hold with one hand and do that. And so there's a couple of aspects of this. The first one is that as you use our apps, you're going to see that we've taken app bar buttons, and we've put them along the sides. Not centered in the middle, as you might think, but actually there, so you can hit them with your fingers without having to reach way in. You also saw this morning the split keyboard that Stephen showed. that also positions the keys near the sides. I can show it really quick if you want to switch over to this machine. I'd be happy to show that. This is number 48, yeah. If I bring this up, I can switch between the different keyboards here. I can choose the split layout. And what we've done is these keys are actually directly under the green section of the overlay that I showed, meaning that they're positioned exactly where people are most comfortable reaching them. So it's just a little bit of the attention to detail that we put into comfort and touch. So now, I want to sort of put it all together. So I showed you this RSS reader at the beginning, this Win32-based RSS reader, and I want to walk you through the steps that I would think about in terms of reimagining this as a Metro-style app. The first one is that you want to just remove lines and boxes. Put some white space in it. Just get rid of all the extra lines. So notice, from here to here, just remove a bunch of the lines. And we removed also blurs and gradients and all sorts of other accoutrements that actually are just detracting from the content. The next thing that we've done is we've removed everything except for the content. We've taken all of the commands and we've put them away. So all you have now are just the RSS feeds and their categories. We put the commands in the app bar, and where there's a charm for a feature, like search or share, we don't replicate that within the app, as you'll see later, but we put it inside of the, or we use the charm instead. Now we take it and we use typography, and typography makes it more beautiful. We show hierarchy with typography, so the categories are bigger text, while the body text is a little bit smaller. And finally, we align it to the grid. And in fact, we take all of the clutter out and we sort of lead with the content, with the pictures that are beautiful. And so those are the steps that you take to reimagine your Win32 RSS reader as a Metro-style app. So, and as you see, very, very beautiful. So these summary slides are mostly for when you're rereading the deck, but it is really, really important that you reimagine your app. A Metro-style app is not just a Win32 app that you get to compile with the new APIs. It needs to be reimagined. It needs to be beautiful. It needs to be touch first, and it needs to lead with the content. Many of these apps are going to be a little bit smaller in scope than a traditional monolithic desktop app. They're going to be more tailored. They're going to be great at doing something, not mediocre at doing a whole bunch of different things. That's how your app is going to get noticed. I read on the blogosphere this morning that some of you were playing Keynote Bingo, and the winner was Fast and Fluid. There's a reason why. Fast and Fluid is one of the words that we injected into the design process, 2 years ago from the very beginning. We have it, in fact, many of you have seen those YouTube videos that we shoot from our design room that's just a few doors down from my office, actually, and we have Fast and Fluid sort of up on the wall for everyone to see. How many of you saw the original YouTube video that we posted in June of the new UI for Windows 8? So one of the things, and I just have it playing down here so that you can sort of remember it a little bit, one of the things that people really said about it was it felt almost magic, because the finger was just moving along the screen gracefully, and it felt so fast. It felt like you weren't seeing lots of stabbing, you were seeing fluid motions. And there's 3 ways that we really created this experience, or created this feeling of fast and fluid. And I'm going to go through each of them now. The first one is just performance. And I know performance is always important for every app, but there is something different here. When you have a mouse, this is indirect, meaning you do something here, and then you're looking at a screen. And so when there's a lag, it's actually kind of okay. You expect it. You've grown used to it. There's already an indirection in place. But when you're using touch, it's so direct. If you touch the screen and nothing happens, it feels horrible. It feels like the machine's dead. It feels like the PC is broken. And so we're not going to be able to hide behind, the old tricks of, not caring about responsiveness. And you're going to see, as you walk through the dev model, and you have a chance to see all of the work that we've done to enable asynchronicity, to provide for a responsive UI, that we're taking this very, very seriously. The second thing is animations, and this is easiest just to visualize. But a fluid interface is one that something is always coming from somewhere and going somewhere. There's always an animation. There's always a detail there. It's not just something appearing. Let me just show you sort of what this looks like. If I switch back, this is just an SDK sample that you guys will be able to download from the SDK. Here, I'm going to launch. And what it just shows, it's just illustrating a few lines of animation code. And watch as I do add an item here. And I'm going to add an item without any animation. This is sort of traditional Windows today. Very functional. Great. But pedestrian, doesn't feel fluid, feels like minimum amount of quality, minimum amount of work put into it. And now let me show you the same thing, except with animation. And it's subtle. But notice how everything has a place. Things show up. If I delete, things move up into the place. It is totally a different night and day experience. One thing says quality, fast and fluid, beautiful. The other thing says crap. We have built something called the animation library into Windows 8. And it makes it incredibly easy for you to take advantage of hardware acceleration. And you don't have to know how to use After Effects or be an animation junkie to get this. We've already designed these system animations. And in fact, if you switch back to the slides here for a second, you can actually see, you're going to go see Paul Gusmerino in a couple of days, do a talk on controls. And these are like 9 of his slides that I just put side by side. You're going to see the depth of controls that we have. If you just use our controls, you get the animation library virtually for free. Every one of these controls, although you control the styling of them, has animations built into them that are beautiful, that are hardware accelerated. And so when you use them, you're going to get this experience that is out of this world. And it's going to be what people are going to expect. And so great Metro-style apps are apps that are great at doing animation. Last aspect of Fast and Fluid I want to call attention to is really about having a language for touch. We realized early on in working on Windows 8 that pretty much what everyone was doing was moving the mouse cursor around with their finger. That we originally had a command line interface, which we all understood, and then we moved to GUI at some point, and that had its own sort of set of paradigms, click and double click and right click. But the new world of touch was evolving to just be the same as GUI. We map right click to press and hold, for instance, and all of these different things, but we really weren't taking advantage of touch. You know, here's a just really clear example, I think, that we showed this morning, but let me show it again, just to sort of to bring it home. So if I switch back to the demo machine. So how many of you have rearranged icons on some system, and you pick it up, you bring it over to the side, and then do-do-do, do-do-do. It's like driving a car from one side of the ocean to the other one. Screen goes by. Okay, I'm going to put it back. I'm just going to go down to the bottom. We're just going to put it back where it went. And let me pick up a different tile. And that's just a mouse-based version, right? That's the same thing you can do with a mouse cursor. Pick it up, and then it moves. What I want to show now is a touch-first way of doing the same thing. Pick up the tile. Now it's loose. Why can't I just pan under it with my other finger? Right? That's multi-touch. That's actually showing that touch is different than just a mouse cursor. Right? It's not the same. And so we have in Windows 8 this touch language. And here are the goals of the touch language. So we wanted it to be simple and consistent. We wanted to have a limited number of gestures. I don't know about you, but I have like limited memory for 5-finger double swipe from this side, bring something forward. Like someone's going to know those things, but we wanted it to be very, very simple. We also believe in direct manipulation. And one aspect of direct manipulation is that you see what you're doing, and it's always reversible. You can always, just like real objects are, if you slide something down, you can slide it back up. And that's really important. And the other thing that we really wanted to do was limit the use of timed gestures. So lots and lots of the existing touch UI that's out there is predicated on waiting to enter a mode. So if you want to rearrange something, you press something for a long time, you wait, then you're in some mode where everything acts differently, and then you move a bunch of stuff around, and then you somehow exit that mode. We've tried to reduce the number of modes in the touch UI of Windows 8 a lot. And I'm going to show you a couple of the ways that we've done that. The first one, and here's the touch language. I put this mostly in for your reference. I'm not going to go through these all now. But these are the 7 gestures, many of them very, you already understand them, and then a few new ones that I want to call attention to. The first one is swipe to select. So if I come back to my demo machine, I am here on the start screen again. And you've seen me do this a couple times, but I want to show it in a little more detail. So when I select an item here, let's say I want to unpin one of these tiles. All I have to do is drag down slightly. I'm going to do it really slow. I'm going to do this, actually, this weather tile here in the upper right-hand corner. So watch my finger. I'm just going to slide down, and sliding down selects it. I didn't enter a mode where I go into checkbox select mode or anything. I just slid my finger down. It's reversible. If I slide my finger again, then it unselects. So if I want to quickly select, unpin it, select, actually I need that tile later, unselect, unpin, and it goes away. So fluid. Fingers actually move very well this way. This is how they're anatomically designed to move. And so then how do I, if I go a little bit further, you will see, I can drag it down to select. If I pull it out a little bit further, then I can move it. And so, again, there's no waiting. There's no moving into a mode. When I want to move something, I can just go, boom, got it, move it, and I'm done. It's fast and fluid. Totally different than what you could do with a mouse. Another one of these that I want to show, well, actually, let me show this in a couple of other apps, actually. I almost threw away this tile by mistake. Here I am in my News app. So what I showed you isn't just for the start screen. It's actually for your apps as well. So I can come in here and say, I want to view this, and slide down this. I can pick 3 or 4 articles that I'm interested in, and then choose this Magazineify down here in the app bar. And that will actually take all of the articles that I saw and put them in one place. So again, swipe, 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 and I'm done. Another example of this, an app that you're going to become very familiar with in the coming days and weeks is the Conference app, which you're going to get tonight, which actually is a list of all of the sessions and things like that. And it's a really cool app. Oh, I get it. You guys want to know what the sessions are? Why didn't someone just say so? But it has the same kinds of selection semantics in this, as well as one other trick that I'm going to show in a second. So let's switch back to the slides, and I want to tell you about another aspect of our touch language, which is something called semantic zoom. Okay? So all of you have done optical zoom with your fingers before. Like, you want to zoom in on a web page. But we've taken that to another level in Windows 8 by actually extending it not just to things that you're optically zooming, but actually using it for navigation. So one of the holes we saw in touch was that moving across long lists of content can be really cumbersome because you have to pan, 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 pan for a long way. Scroll bars, it turns out, with the mouse actually have great ways of doing this. They've got move a page at a time. They've got a lot of times skip all the way to the end. And so we wanted to see what could we do to build the same kind of thing except in a touch-first way. So here's how semantic zoom works. I'm going to switch back to my demo machine. And here I am in the start screen. And if I want to move quickly to the end of the list, yeah, I could do pan, 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 get all the way there. Or I could take my fingers, 2 fingers on the screen, and simply zoom out. And I call it semantic zoom because notice as I do that it's actually not just optically zooming, it's actually showing a different semantic view of the information. It's showing the icons and other things that make sense at this zoom level. Once I'm here, I can either zoom in on the thing at the left to get there, or I can operate at sort of a higher semantic level. Like, for instance, I can select one of these, just like I would normally select a tile, or I can even move them around, just like I would move a tile around as well. And so semantic zoom is a way of making it super fluid to get from here to there in just one gesture. Here's another example of it. Here's an app. Sorry, it's actually in here. That's called Game Reviewer. It's here next to my Xbox Live tile. And what this is it's just a sample app that shows a bunch of Xbox 360 games. And again, you can see this is a pretty long list. But what I can do, just to see the list of categories, is take my fingers, zoom out, and I get sort of this semantic view, and then I can zoom back in on the one that I want to see. Same deal when I go back to the conference app that I showed earlier. Here's my schedule, which you can see is a long list of things that I'm going to attend this week. Or just take my fingers and zoom it out, see my week at a glance, and then zoom in on Thursday at 9 a.m. This is the way that you handle content in a Metro-style app, using semantic zoom to move out and then move back in. And it's totally fluid. Just pinch and tap, or pinch and pinch back in. So this is a really important concept. So the last thing that people really ask is, what about mouse and keyboard? We've seen all of this touch-first interaction. What am I supposed to do as a developer to take advantage of mouse and keyboard? The most important thing is don't bifurcate, that means separate, the touch and mouse interfaces. Don't create a different interface for mouse than what you use for touch. Because what it means is that you can't apply what you learn with touch or with mouse when you're on a different kind of PC. And many of these touch-first PCs that you're going to have are going to also be convertible, or they're going to be dockable, and you're going to be moving back and forth between touch and keyboard and mouse fluidly. Conversely, every PC, every screen in the world is going to have touch in a few years, right? A screen without touch is a broken screen. Seriously, it's going to seem laughable in a few years that you're going to remember that there are screens that don't have touch, because it is so natural to use, and it's going to seem antiquated. It's going to be like remembering, PCs that didn't have displays because they had punch cards or something. It's an antiquated concept. So you need to be prepared for people to have all three modalities, mouse and keyboard and touch, and be switching between them fluidly. And let me just give you an example. This is a mouse. I think it's hooked up. And let's go back to the demo machine, if we may. Okay, so now you see I've got a mouse cursor showing up. Now that if you snap this mouse like this, then it turns on. And I'm going to show you IE again. So I'm going to click on the IE tile. And I'm going to go back to a page that I was on. And so here I am in this Whole Foods website. And normally, if you wanted to bring up the tools, what would you do? You'd swipe from the bottom to bring it up. But you can't really swipe up with a mouse. So what do you do when you're in a program and you're lost? And you don't know how to find the relevant commands? What do? You right-click. And anywhere in a Metro-style app, you right-click and it shows the contextual tools that surround it. So right-click is already handled by the system for you to bring up the tools. So again, if you just use the templates and you use the controls and you use what we've given you, all of this will come for free. And you will find that the controls go from touch to mouse to keyboard in a very fluid way. Okay, so switching back to the slides. The summary here really is that fast and fluid is incredibly important. You're going to hear, or even though you're making fun of us for using fast and fluid again and again, we're just going to keep saying it, because that's what Windows 8 needs to feel like. And you guys are going to write the code that are going to help that be true in the apps as well. And embrace the touch language. Learn it. There's a great talk that two of my colleagues are giving, JK and Kai, that I have listed at the end of this, on the touch language, and you'll see all the background of how it got created and learn how to fully embrace it. I really encourage you to go to that and learn how to build great apps for this new, novel touch language that is not like what anyone else has done. And so we really need to understand how to apply it. Next is really about scaling your app beautifully. So look at this. You saw Mike Angiulo show all of these PCs, and every one of them is running Windows 8. Every one of them is running the start screen. But if you look at it closely, you probably notice there are some differences here. So this large Asus screen has 5 rows of tabs. The Slate running right next to it has only 3 rows of tabs. And so there's already, you can tell that there's different scalability at work here. And as you look across the variety of form factors, well, this is both your opportunity, but it's also a potential extra work you have to do if you don't understand how to actually scale beautifully across these different form factors. Because it's not just one, it's several. The good news is that we've made this really, really easy. So switching back to the slides here. So when you look at the form factors you're going to be scaling across, you're going to be looking at tablets below 10 inches all the way to 27-inch screens and above. You are welcome in your app to say, hey, I only run on an 11.6-inch slate. That's 16 by 9. And you could say that. But you're not going to get as rich as if you target the world who's running all these different form factors. Another thing that you're going to be seeing is high DPI screens are coming. I've seen them. They're beautiful. The screen manufacturers are doing an amazing job of creating these. Just looking at the difference between 16 by 9, 1366 by 768, and then an HD 1920 by 1080 screen, the text is so much sharper. It's so much more beautiful. And these are just going to become commonplace. So when you look at how you scale your app, and again, this is the Newsreader app, you look at the difference between it at 10 inches and how it scales up. This is the Samsung device you're going to be getting. And then we move through typical laptops all the way up to an all-in-one. You can see that there are a few things we need to consider in building a UI that works great across all of these form factors. The great news is that the built-in templates and the controls, they already provide great scaling support. I mean, HTML and XAML were both already built for scalability. Right? Web pages already run on all of these machines, and XAML's been great about that from the beginning. But it does mean that you will want to provide 3 sizes of assets to be ready for HD screens in the future. This 100% asset that you see here is the one that when you're debugging on your Samsung Windows Developer Preview PC, you will see show up there. The 140% is the one that shows up on sort of the same screen except like a more HD. This laptop's already running at 140. And then 180 is the size that runs on the Ultra HD screens that are going to become commonplace in a couple of years. If you provide these 3 asset sizes, or even better, vector art, like SVG, or you use CSS primitives to draw your UI, or XAML, then you're covered. And we don't anticipate ever asking for another asset size. This isn't a like one time we ask for it and the next year we're like, screens are getting bigger and then here's another asset size. And we're not going to keep asking you to redesign your apps. We believe that this gets us through the effective DPI at which humans can perceive on a screen. So think about this from the beginning and you will gracefully scale across the widest variety of PCs. So then you think about what are the different views of your application that you have the opportunity to provide. So this is the first one. This is the baseline. This is the 1024 by 768. You don't have to do anything below this. You don't have to mess with 800 by 600 or 1024 by 600 or anything. And every app will need to provide that view. You'll also want to provide a widescreen view. And think about this as the Samsung Slate that you're going to get tonight, except in its full view, so the entire screen used for your app. You also are going to create a snap view for your app. And the snap view is the snap region over there on the side. And I'll talk about that in a second, but you are going to provide that view. That's one of the views that your app is required to give. And then, optionally, you may also choose to provide a portrait view of your app. And certain apps work really well in portrait. Some people have asked why, why are we showing so many things in landscape? Why aren't we sort of portrait first? And there's lots of apps that work really well in landscape. Lots of apps that can lay claim to working well in portrait as well. Certainly games and video and things like that work really well in landscape. But there's also another consideration. And again, look at the PCs behind me. You're not just writing for slates. How many of you have a portrait laptop? Okay, a few people. But the vast majority of people have monitors and laptops that are landscape first. So you'll definitely want to provide a landscape view, but you may want to do a portrait view. And I'll show you portrait running. I think we ran out of time to really show it this morning, but I'm happy to show it to you, just so you can see sort of how it works. So here I am. Let's try to get this on the screen. Oops. Let's go back to the start screen here. Zoom in on this a little bit. So here I am in the start screen. This is the machine that you guys are getting tonight. And I'm just going to flip it. As I do, you'll see that the start screen moves into portrait mode, just like you'd expect. I can launch the News app. Sorry, the News app, runs great that way too. I can put it back. Here we go. Sorry, here we go. Again. So we have all the capabilities for you to support this in your app. It's just your choice whether you choose to provide that view or not. But it's there, and you can be playing with it. You can be playing with it tonight. So Snap. So every app must implement a Snap state. This is not an option. You can choose to leave it empty, but that will be weird. I would recommend filling it up. And it actually is a huge opportunity for you. It invites people to keep your app on the screen longer. And the way to think about these is it preserves the user's context. It's not like a special gadget view of your app. It is actually your running app. It's a fully functional version of your app, and it's just a different view of the same content the user is looking at. So as they move something from the main view to the Snap, you shouldn't feel like you've lost context. And this isn't actually a big deal. I mean, how many of you have written a phone app? Right, a lot of you. Typical phone app is, let's say 320 by 240. The Snap region is 320 pixels across as well. It's just longer. So you already know how to lay out your content in a 320 friendly way. Let me just show you a couple examples of Snap, just to get your mind thinking that this is not actually, a huge challenge. It's actually quite easy. And again, the templates just do this for you. So here's Tweetorama in its fill view and in its Snap view. Here's the Stocks app, full view, and the same thing in its snapped view. Weather lays out itself a little bit different. That's totally appropriate to do. But, again, shows the same kind of information, the same kind of context. Here's the session screen of the Build app that you're going to get tonight. Again, it does a great job of Snap. Word Hunt, you can play it in the big screen or the small screen. It doesn't pause itself or go into a weird mode. You can use it equally well in both places. And here's a fun one that you can play around with tonight. The piano actually rotates itself to the side. So you can rock out, and maybe put your drum app in the main part. So you can have some fun with this. But if you do a great Snap state, you actually make people want to keep your app up. And there's so many great scenarios for this because we know people do two things at once. One of the first things we realized when we started thinking about immersive apps was that in reality, people's brains are wired today to do two things at once. You can keep up with the feed that you're watching while browsing the web. You've got a video on in the background while you're doing mail or coding. It's just a very common thing. So we wanted to support that from the beginning. So you can make your app be a great part of this by developing a great snapped view of your app. So in summary on this, just provide the three sizes of assets. Easy. You can do vectors even better. Create a compelling Snap view, and many apps will benefit from creating a portrait view. And you are very willing and open to do that. Okay, so next I want to talk about contracts. You are going to be hearing a lot about contracts this week. And it is a concept that you're going to have to probably hear about a couple times before it's like totally clear in your mind, but I'm going to try again to help elaborate on what got introduced this morning. So the UI that I'm showing there are the charms, but many of the charms, in fact all of them, represent one of the system contracts, although there are more contracts than just those. Contracts are the glue that bind apps together. We talked about this web of apps and how we have a point of view that says that apps work together. I really think about this as two apps that you write and that you write can talk together without the two of you having even met in order to complete a scenario. I'm going to show you a few of these in more detail, but there's really a lot of these to learn about. But you choose to implement as many of these contracts as you feel is appropriate for your app, and each one of them lets you interact with another app or some aspect of the system to make your app more powerful. And then as you have more apps, your system becomes more powerful. All of a sudden you can do things in a fluid way that doesn't require an extra step in between. Just part of our point of view on how apps make the system more powerful. So the first one I'm going to show in some detail is the share contract. So share lets any app share data with any other app. We have something we call the source. That's the app that is sharing something. So in the Internet Explorer example, it's i.e. sharing its web page. And a target is something that can be shared through. And really what we've done here is we've created a set of common formats that provide for data interchange between the apps. Let me show you a couple of demos of this. So coming back to my demo machine. Okay, so I guess the first one of these that I'm going to show is back to our news app that we've been showing. And let me go back to the main screen here. So here I am, and let's say that there's an article that I want to share. So let me come over here. And okay, so here's one. I'm going to bring in the share charm. I'm going to touch that. And what this is going to do is bring up this pane that helps me share. And if you look at the bottom, what this has is under the word apps, it has a list of the apps that have identified themselves as targets, as sharing targets. Each one of these has implemented the target share contract to say, I can be shared through. And the news app has implemented the source contract. It said, I can share data. And so what I can do now is pick one of these. Let's say, for instance, Tweetorama. And what actually happened here was that a view of Tweetorama launched inside of this pane. So what this isn't is some one-size-fits-all, view that Microsoft has created that we try to wedge all sharing into. We know that you can do the best job of showing your apps data, showing your app's views, and we want to allow you to express yourself. That's what makes this powerful. So this is actually Tweetorama's UI, and they happen to put a link in here. This is just a link. I can also do some typing, and then I can go ahead and post it right from there. So I didn't leave the context of the news app, and news and Tweetorama talk to one another without either of those developers knowing one another. Here's another quick example of it. So you guys are going to get to play with a simple app called PaintPlay. And maybe some of the interns that worked on that are here, so you can clap. And this is just a simple, simple painting app. And I can draw some stuff in here, just a multi-finger sort of painting app. And I can come into Share. And this time I can choose this app, FriendSend. FriendSend happens to support the format that PaintPlay was sending out. PaintPlay was sending a picture, and FriendSend can receive a picture. I can also add a message. I can choose who I want to share with, and then you can see that that actually is getting sent up. And I can tap away, and that will continue to share in the background. So two apps working together because each app implemented one side of a contract. This is a really important concept in Windows 8. So, should you implement the share contract? Every app that's possible should be implementing a source. Like, your app should allow sharing from it. And in the broadest set of formats possible. That makes you the most compatible with the most other apps out there. In terms of targets, we don't think every app should be a target. But this isn't just about sharing to social networks. The share contract is also great for sharing with lots of other kinds of apps. Imagine that you're writing a translator app, and you want to make it possible to translate on the fly stuff that's in another app. Or a note-taking app that stores things from other apps. Read it later type services. Maybe you're a cloud service that sucks data in or stores it. Maybe you're an image editor, a creativity app, or a movie maker. There's so many different possibilities. It's not just about sharing with people. It's also about sharing with an app and what an app is capable of. So it's very, very powerful. The next one I want to talk about is also a charm, the search charm. And the search contract really is powerful because it allows you to search from anywhere in Windows within your app. This is what you use instead of in-app search UI. Every app today, this is another place where we looked around and saw that every app is doing their own thing. They all have a search box and a button, and many times similar semantics about how you go about typing in the box and bringing back results, but they're always in a different place. And so we standardize this in a way that's very beneficial to both the developer and the person using the product. Let me just show you some of the power of this right now. So I'm going to go in back to the demo machine again. And let's go ahead and launch the Bing app. So I've got it up here. Okay, so this is the Bing app. And come in here, and I'm going to go to the search charm. And I'm going to search for Hawaii. Let's try that. Okay. I'm going to touch in here, and I'm going to start typing. Notice as I do, it's starting to autocomplete results. That's coming not from Windows, but from the app itself. The app it's part of the contract is it's sending back search results. And in fact, I see Hawaii here, and I'm going to touch that. And then the Bing app is able to bring back results in its own UI. So this is actually Bing's UI, not our one-size-fits-all UI, and bring back results. So I could plan my vacation here, but I want to see what things people are saying on social networks about Hawaii. So I can just touch the tile right below it, Tweetorama, and it's going to perform the same search, except this time in the context of Tweetorama. So now I can see what people are saying on social networks about Hawaii. Or maybe I want to see pictures of Hawaii. So I'm going to touch PicStream, which also supports the search contract. And it's going to bring up what it knows on Flickr about Hawaii, what pictures are out there on the internet from that. And so each one of these apps can show in its own UI the view that makes the most sense. This app may have decided that just a progress bar is the best way to represent its search results. But I do, you should play with this tonight, and it'll bring back pictures from Hawaii, as you'd expect. Let me show another example of this. So in this case, I'm going to, let me click away here, and I'm going to go to this app, Socialite, which you will also get to play with tonight. And I'm going to search for a friend that I have. His name is Jason Beaumont. And you can watch his talk on animations in 2 days, I think. So I'm going to start typing his name. And notice that as I do, let me just do J. Notice that this time I'm getting search suggestions, but they actually have pictures next to them. This, again, is part of the search contract. The Socialite app has exposed its data to Windows and exposed its view to show up. So I can just touch Jason Beaumont. The app now can show me what it knows about Jason Beaumont. And this, actually, let me switch over to number 47. We may have lost internet connectivity on that machine. So let me switch over to 47 if we can. I will do the same thing. Come in here. I'm going to start typing Jason Beaumont. Type on the name, and let's hope that comes back. Okay. So let's look at and see if the same thing, if I open the same thing in the Build conference app, so I would have just seen basically his Socialite feed. I can see the same thing in the Build app, and it shows what it knows about this. I can search for him in Twitter and see that as well. I can go back to the Bing app and see what they know about him. And so the process of going from app to app to app to find the thing that you're looking for is incredibly fluid. I don't have to dig into each app, come back out, move to the next app, go down, come back up. And you do this, you participate in this by implementing the search contract. So how do you know, going back to the slides, if I should implement the search contract or not? So if you are an app that browses or creates dynamic content. So imagine that you have like a store behind you that has stuff in it that's always changing. or you're a reference app, like a dictionary or thesaurus, then you should implement the search contract. Just because the contract's there doesn't mean you should implement it, though. We don't need 800 apps in that list that are just searching things that are not likely for the user to actually go looking for. So if you're just a game, or you're a novelty app, or a utility, it's a great app, but you probably don't need to do search, because you probably don't have something interesting to search within you. It's also not the place for sort of find in doc. So if you're writing a PDF reader, for instance, you should do find actually within your app's UI, not using the search contract. So just a good rule of thumb here, if you were going to build a search UI anyway, then you should use the search contract. You probably shouldn't implement search just because it's there. So think about if your app really needs search, and if it does, then use the search charm and the contracts that are behind it. The last of the contracts I want to talk about right now is the picker contract. And what the picker contract allows you to do is to get data or get files or pictures or music from one app to another app. Let me show you what this looks like. And this is going to be a couple of different examples of this. So I'm on number 47 now. OK, that's showing up. Good. So I'm going to do this change user tile. And you saw us change user tile using a webcam before. But now I want to show you what happens if I just choose browse. So by default, it brings back the files that are just in my file system. It's actually a huge advantage. Like actually, when it turns out, where are my pictures? Like some of them are on web services, an awful lot of them are just on my hard drive. So this is like a big, this is a really big thing. And of course, this isn't just local system. This is the network. This is other computers at home, other computers in a home group. It's any PC I can get to. So even though I'm sort of skipping over this, this is a big deal. This is actually where your content lives today, is in PCs. But we also know that your information also lives in services and in other apps. And so the way the picker works is you can not just go between things like documents and pictures and other computers on your network, but between other apps that have implemented the picker contract. So in this case, there are 4 apps in here. One of them is Socialite, which just wasn't connected to the network, but let's see if it works. If it doesn't, I will switch to a different one. Oh. So this is actually pulling photos from my social network. So imagine that I come in here and I know that I have an album online, and it has pictures of me that people have tagged. And I'm going to choose that. And now I haven't done the interim step of taking my picture from Facebook or from Socialite and taking it to my hard drive, saving it, and then bringing it into the other app. I've just gone from app to app together. Another example of that, let's say I want to change my lock screen image here that you've seen in the lock screen. So I can do browse here, and again, I can choose between things on my hard drive. And also look how fast that is. Like notice that's just loading stuff, like literally like huge, photos from my camera, and it's like totally fast. But I'm going to go this time to ShutterWeb, which is getting it from another service. Come in here, change my lock screen. 2 apps working together to complete a scenario. I can even hook up apps, again, that don't know anything about one another. I'm in Tweetorama. Let me go back to the main page. I'm going to choose a picture. I'm going to choose a picture from Socialite that I know I have here. Let's come into here, choose this one, import, post. Now, 2 different services, 2 different apps working together to complete a scenario, windows in between, and neither of the apps need to know anything about one another. That's what the picker contract creates. So coming back to the slides again, the reason to do this is as someone who's writing an app that's service-backed, it allows your data to stay in the service. Today what's happening is every one of these scenarios that I showed, you go to the social network or app, and you save something to your hard drive. So now you have a one-off that's just sitting there. And then you go into the other app, and you find the way to move it into that. And then you just get little turds of files sitting everywhere. You no longer have one. Oh, sorry. You have. But they are sort of. You end up with one-off versions everywhere because the services can't interact with one another. So we're creating this layer between the apps that allow them to work together. And that's part of what makes Windows 8 contracts really special. So learn about contracts. This is what powers the Windows 8 experience. And don't create an in-app UI just to do the same experiences that you could do with contracts. Okay. We're halfway through. You guys feel like you're drinking from the fire hose? A little bit? All right. Second half is shorter. So, let's talk about tiles. So here's a tile. It's for an app that you're gonna get, lets you play around with a rotated paper airplane. It's called Aircraft. And this is fine. And when you think about a tile at its very basis, I guess it's a program launcher. That's interesting. But in reality, if you think about it, it's not that much different than an icon. This is Notepad sitting in the Windows 7 Explorer. This is not actually interesting. Icons are yesterday's way of representing apps. They're antiquated, they're not alive, they're not interesting, they're not helpful. They're just, a picture and a line of text. And they were fine in the early GUI era, but in today's world, they're antiquated. And so when you think about tiles, don't think about them as just being a simple little program launcher. They're actually, different things to different apps and for different people. They're a front door to your app. They're connected. The best tiles are alive with activity, and they draw you in. They're constantly summoning people back to your app because there's something interesting happening. Or they're making it so you don't have to go to your app at all. Some of the most useful apps, like the weather app that I use, I don't need to go in there most of the time because it has my next 3 days right there on my start screen. They tell you what's next up. Sometimes they're an extension of the app. In fact, they're almost always an extension of the app, but it's telling you what happened last time you're in there. Like in the lower left-hand corner, you can see the music app is telling me what album, the Viper Creek Club album that's paused in here. This is the really what tiles are about. They're not just an icon, just like a graphically rendered awesome picture of a book with a line of text under it. They're an extension of your app. They're what makes your app feel like it's always running, even if it's not. It's what connects people emotionally. The thing that made, and I've been working on the start screen now for almost a year and a half, 2 years. The thing that really, we knew it was going to click, but the thing that made it click for the first time was when my kids' pictures started showing up on there. And all of a sudden you start to make that emotional connection. All of your apps have the potential to create some emotional connection with the user. And it's something you can't just do through an icon. So some practical stuff about tiles. They have a single hit target. So they're not gadgets, meaning that there's not lots of interactivity within them. You touch them and they perform an action. The tile designs are templated, so we wanted to find the right balance between letting your app's personality shine through, but still having it not just be Times Square. We want still the overall start screen to be very harmonious. So you provide the text, you provide the images, and we'll do the rest. And just because they're templated doesn't mean that there's not a lot of choices. I put as many of the templates as I could fit on one slide. There's more than this. And you can see they change from, they range from full bleed, where you control every pixel, to different layouts that are great for small messages, large messages, putting glyphs on things. So you have a lot of flexibility here in terms of creating a beautiful tile that represents your app. I also want to talk about secondary tiles. This is one of the things that makes the start screen so personal. So you can not just pin apps to your start screen, but you can also pin things from within your apps to the start screen. So if you are in your news app and you have an RSS feed that you care a lot about, you can pin it. If you have a city that you care about a lot in weather, you can pin it. Let me, in fact, just show you some of that working. Let me go back to number 47. I don't actually have 47 PCs. I think it's just the 47th PC that was up here on stage. Can we bring up PC 47? Thank you. So let me just show you a couple examples. So we've seen a lot of the news app today. So I've got a few feeds in here. I've got it's a Qt overload. Okay, so this may be something that I care about a lot. It looks like it's mostly Qt pictures. So I'm going to tap on it to go into Qt overload, and I'm going to bring up the app bar. And you see I have a glyph here, a button for pin. So I'm going to touch that. Let's try it again. Come back. Let's try this one. Pin. Let's switch to 48, shall we? Did we mention developer preview? Did we mention it? If we didn't mention it, you will know what it means by the end of the night. I still think you're going to love it, but it's a little rough around the edges in places. Okay, so we're going to come back in here. Let's try, we got a different set of feeds in here. Swiss Smiths. Let's see if I can get it to come up on here. Wonder why that's, okay, I'm going to do something I'm probably not supposed to demo. Let's come in here. One tap and it's dead. Okay, let's try one of these again and see what's going on here. Okay, so now I'm gonna do pin. Good trick that you will become familiar with. And I'm gonna choose pin to start on this design milk. And what you're gonna see now, if I go back to the start screen, is this tile here at the side now represents that part of the news app, of the Design Milk app. And it has all the capabilities of a normal tile, meaning that it can peek, it can animate, it can show me things from it, I can rearrange it, just like any other tile, I can put it next to here. In fact, you can see a whole bunch of these already created, like all these people here are from my social app that I've pinned. I can do the same thing actually from weather. Do I still have weather, or did I kill that app? There it is. I can come over here and choose a city. Let's say Auckland. Anyone from New Zealand? Yeah. You're missing 52 degrees. Come in here. I'm going to choose pin, the city. Let's say Auckland. And now I have, here at the end of the start screen, I have Auckland weather, which will update as soon as the service brings it down. So what this allows, and I've got other ones up here too. I've got stocks. I pinned the Dow here. I've got people, as I mentioned. So imagine that, going back to the slides, imagine that any part of one of your apps can be pinned. And that actually makes your app more sticky, because people can come back to just the part they care about. And it makes the start screen so much more personal, because it's not just apps, it's also cities and people and stories and levels and sites and just everything I care about in my digital world laid out how I want it laid out. Alive with activity, always updated. I find myself more often going back to the start screen just to see what's going on. I don't have to constantly launch apps and say, hey, is there anything new going on in Engadget? I don't know. I can tell that there is because it's there on my start screen. I can go and see everything in one glance. And you will, once you use it, you will get addicted to it, and everything else will feel antiquated. That's what it's like. And you can bring that experience to your own app by allowing secondary tiles. So invest in a great tile. They're not just icons, they're an extension of your app. And I want to go a little bit further than that and talk about connected and alive. A couple of other things that we really tried to add to the feeling of using Windows 8. From the beginning, we've talked about Windows 8 being alive with activity. Right before build started a week ago, we met with like the marketing people. And they're like, yeah, I know you guys have used Alive with Activity, but we ran it by a focus group, and they envisioned snakes and spiders when you mention Alive with Activity. And so you probably shouldn't use that word. Use something else, like brimming with activity. And we said, well, how about if I just tell everyone that it's not about snakes? And they said, well, we don't recommend using it. And I said, okay, thanks. So Windows is alive with activity. And what that means is that we want to bring what's great about the web into Windows. It's alive, it's connected, there's always something new to do and to see. There's always something drawing you in, there's always a new place to go. It's vibrant, it's a city full of people and things doing things. It's not a static screen full of icons. And the way that you add aliveness to your app is through live tiles and notifications. So a live tile takes what you saw, like just a beautiful tile, and actually adds this up-to-date aspect to it. What it means is that the News app actually has the most recent headlines. You'll see this. You'll see a bunch of your things are already hooked up. You'll see your Tweetorama and your news, and you can create your own feeds and see just like I can tell what's going on the start screen. It actually makes it more likely that people are going to put your app on the first page, because we found that people create pages of stuff that they care about. Let me switch back to, let's do 48, if we could. And what we'll see here, we're on the start screen. And if you look at how we've organized Start, and you can see things flipping through, you can see sort of aliveness coming. And you can see it's very graceful also. You can see that they're not all happening at once. We sort of batch them up, and we do them in this fluid way that's beautiful and in order, and we handle all of that. You just tell us when you have an update. But we don't have folders. What we do have is groups. And folders are actually what we found is kind of bad, because they put everything down a level, right? They make you tuck things away where you can't see them, which means you don't feel the aliveness from them. It also is really hard to name folders, it turns out. Like, it's really easy the first time you get folders, and you're like, oh, I'm going to make one called News, and I'm going to have one called Games. And then these things sort of feel like they fit together. I don't know what I'm going to call them. And then you sort of peter out, and half your things are in folders and half aren't. But it turns out, though, that people do love to make groups. And so what we've done is allowed you to create groups. You can see that there's borders here. You totally create those. You choose where to put them. You can put names on them if you want. So you can call it Friends. You can call it Games. Or if you don't know, you just sort of feel like this group here, deserves to be together, you can just put them together. So it brings you the best of folders and the best of groups and the best of aliveness all in one place. But what it means is that we find that people tend to take the live tiles, and the ones that are really valuable to them, if what I really care about is this feed here, I'm just going to take it and put this in my first group. And so you, if in implementing live tiles, have an opportunity to find yourself more frequently on the first page. Switching back to the slides for a second. This is another live tile. All of the same templates that you've seen that I showed you before, many of these already support something called Peek, which is that they have multiple states within them, that you can bring down text and bring down picture at the same time, and it'll actually switch between them. So live tiles can be large or small. Any kind of tile can be live. There's a couple of other facilities you have that we haven't talked about that I'm showing here. So in the lower right-hand corner, you can give us a number. So that can represent number of unread things or number of missed calls. You choose what the number means. Or you can choose from a set of glyphs that you can put there. It's called badges. It's another way to sort of make your tile really great. It's important that your app personality shines through. Not all of these are homogeneous. So you may choose to have a different tone than another app, or you may choose to use the tile in a slightly different way. That creativity is really there for you to express yourself. But not display ads. This is not a place to sell advertising, and that's one of the things that will likely be looked at not fondly in terms of placement and things like that. So it's there for your app to prevent relevant content to users. And these small templates here, you're going to look at this, this slide when you're actually writing your app, and you're going to try to use these, and you're going to be surprised when you can't. These are templates that are, these 4 in particular, these small ones, are not in the developer preview that you have, but will be there in the not too distant future. Then there's notifications. And notifications let you briefly bring up a pop-up message from anywhere in Windows. So this is if you have something that's really, really urgent that you need to bring up. The important thing here is that there's no junk drawer of notifications to go clean up. This is not a place, there's not like a thing pops up and then they all go into a tray or a pod or something, and then you every day go and like try to clean those up. If a notification is suitably important, that if the user misses it, there's a problem, then you update the tile with that information. Let me just show one of these really quickly. Switch to 48, if you could. And I'm going to show you here this app that a few of our interns wrote called Alarms. And this is a simple alarm clock. And what I'm going to do, and this is going to be really quick, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to set an alarm. It's actually going to go off in 10 seconds. So watch what I do really quickly when I push this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the button to set the alarm, and I'm going to come back to the start screen, and notice that the alarms tile updates. Normally it would update. I was too slow to show me that the alarm is set. Also, then in the lower right-hand corner, notice that this pop-up has come up. This would come up no matter where I was in Windows, but it's limited in the amount of time that it can come up. And as a user, I can just take it and I can push it off the screen, and it's not there. I can also, of course, turn off notifications overall for the entire system in sort of like a do not disturb kind of mode. So switching back to the slides, just like with tiles, there's a set of templates that you can use to lay out your content for notifications. You choose a color, you choose a glyph, and things like that. But these are not for everything. Most apps should actually be silent, should not be notifying. And you should, ask the user to only opt in for notifications. Of course, as a user, you're in control of going into the Settings app and saying this app can't notify you. So you don't want your app to be in that state. So it's really only for things that should be totally interruptive. This is not the place for ambient noise. So this is not like the stock price changed, unless the user's gone into your app and said, tell me when the stock goes above 50 or something like that. And again, the pattern is when you miss a notification, if it's important, then that information should go into the tile, because there's no place that we've created for, no junk drawer for notifications for the user to go clean up. The important thing here is that in terms of making it alive with activity, live tiles and notifications use exactly the same infrastructure. There's a session on live tiles and notifications that you'll be able to go to later in the week that will explain this. But essentially, there's three kinds of ways of using these facilities. The first one is local, which means when your app is actually running, then you can update your tile or you can send a notification. The second is scheduled, which means you choose a specific point in time in the future. Like the alarm clock knows that it's going to fire a notification at 8 o'clock tonight. It tells Windows that, and Windows takes care of it in the background. And the third one is using the push notification service, WNS. This is actually the way that most of you are going to end up doing aliveness and connectedness in your apps. I'm not talking about it in detail here, although there's several sessions about this. This allows you to update your app at any time, on any PC, anywhere in the world, even if your app isn't running. So this is what's behind our apps like Tweetorama and Weather and News and all of these that stay alive even if you're not running them. It's because they're using WNS to update themselves. And so that's something that you'll want to look into. So use WNS, use live tiles, create these experiences that are connected, that are always up to date to draw people into your app. Next, I want to talk for a second about the cloud and roaming to the cloud. So an important way to think about Windows 8 is that even though your app, the process is actually only running when it's on the screen, it must feel like it is always alive. And here's a couple of examples. When I come back to an app after 15 minutes, it should be just as if you never left. Your PC is going to be coming in and out of power states. People are going to take your app and push it off the screen and expect to come back and most times be in the same place they were when they left. When you finish a game, how annoying is it that you have to play it again on another device? I don't know how many devices I finished the first 26 levels of Angry Ninjas or Plants vs. Fruit, and then on the next device I have to go play through the exact same levels again. When I do something on one Windows 8 PC, it should remember that I did that on another PC. When I change a setting, I should never have to change that setting again. I have a lock screen that has, my daughter, and I always want that. I use the Dvorak keyboard. I want to tell Windows, some applause for the Dvorak keyboard. That's so great. You will find that we have the first ever shipped inbox touch Dvorak keyboard for those 5 of you like me. But now I've digressed. I shouldn't ever have to tell Windows that again. It should remember that. And especially as you imagine that we roam through all of these different PCs over here. This isn't about one device that you have as just a luxury. This is about all of my devices run Windows 8. My slates, my laptops, my desktops. And so I expect the same experience on each of them. When I complete a level of Labyrinth on one machine, it should remember and start at the next level on the next PC. When I tell the weather app that I prefer Celsius, then it should remember that and always show me Celsius. This is made possible by the cloud. And there's lots more information coming on this. But in a nutshell, most users are going to log onto their PCs with their Windows Live ID. That doesn't mean necessarily a Hotmail account. It could mean their Gmail account, but it's backed by a Windows Live ID. Every app is getting an allotment of per user cloud storage for settings and for state and for a small amount of user content. Not gigs of storage, but enough that you can roam your state and that you can roam your settings. And Azure, of course, as part of our cloud story, makes it incredibly easy to add additional services on top of that. And so every app is just going to get this out of the box. And so when you think about settings, for instance, this is something where you expect to enter something once and never have to enter it again. Let me come back to number 47 for a second. And I'm going to quickly come into the video app. So the way that settings works is one of our charms. I'm going to tap it here. And as you saw this morning, it has system settings at the bottom, and then it has app-defined settings at the top. So this video settings, help, and about are actually things that the video app has provided. You shouldn't have your own settings UI within your app. The settings charm is the way to do that, and you can build your UI any way you want within using this framework. You can do the same thing with another example of this, the weather app. I already showed you the Celsius thing has the same thing. It has weather preferences, and it's got Celsius and Fahrenheit in it. So going back to the slides for a second, once I set those settings, you should put them in a place where they get remembered, which is in the sort of roaming settings part of the system. And you'll learn about that. Another important aspect of roaming is process lifetime. All great Metro-style apps preserve state as they go and do not require explicit save. In fact, this is imperative because what's going to happen is when your app gets pulled off the screen, it's going to have about 5 seconds to do whatever it wants to do before it's suspended. This is what my PC full of apps looks like. You can see the CPU is at 1%, even though I'm running in the user's mind 15 different apps. That 1% was rendering Task Manager, in fact. And when I bring one of these back, as you'll find out, they're instantaneous. Everything that we've showed you, where you've seen me go in the back stack and bring something out, those are all suspended apps that are getting rejuvenated and brought back to life. But as an app, you may never get out of suspend again. So you really only have 5 seconds to save your state. So you're going to need to be saving it as you go along, which of course means from a user point of view, I don't have to worry about saving my stuff. So it's really important as I move between machines that I get that same experience. So an example, and I showed a few of these, like you'd expect to remember Celsius versus Fahrenheit. You'd expect to remember the feeds that I subscribe to. You'll see this working already in the build that you're getting. The news app, if you set up feeds, if you say, I love this feed, it'll be there on your other PC. In terms of state, if I'm writing a reader app, I expect it to remember where I was last time I was there and pick that up on another PC. It should remember the last checkpoint in a game that I completed. It should remember the last track I listened to in music. So it's about, on any device that you're on, Windows knows you, it remembers you, and it makes a seamless experience. Last one of these, and this is just one slide. We have something that we believe in that's called the Metro-style design principles. And there's one session that Sam Moreau is giving that outline this. And it's really just these 5. And these sort of underline everything that we've done in Windows 8 in terms of how we decide sort of the right path for doing something. We believe in craftsmanship. We believe in being fast and fluid. And all these different things. And so I just urge you to go learn about these and think about them and think about how they may apply to your own app. And there's a session that I'll point you to where you can learn more about these, but they're very, very important to us. And they've been very helpful in creating this. So it's your turn. This is a huge opportunity to start a new ecosystem, the biggest ecosystem, the most important ecosystem, and the one that can potentially change the most people's lives and experiences with their computing devices. I wrote down 8 talks that go into a little more detail about what I showed. You might want to just write down these numbers here. These slides, of course, will be available as well to help plan what you're going to be doing over the next few days. And these will go into greater depth in some of the concepts that I introduced. So again, learn these 8 traits. They're not the only things that you need. You also need a great idea. You need to be bug-free. You need to have interesting content. But if you do these 8 things, you are really far along the way to creating a very successful Metro-style app. This is really the beginning. Today represents the beginning of a journey that's going to last probably decades. And you guys are in the ground floor of creating amazing apps that are going to be unlike what people have seen on any platform. And you're going to build them on devices that are more flexible, that are more amazing, that are more varied than in any other ecosystem. And that all starts today. And so these are some of the tools and philosophies that you can tuck in the back of your mind and revisit in terms of making beautiful apps. You're going to go take a break now, and you're going to come back, and Alesh Holacek is going to come back, and he's going to write code for 60 minutes, and he is going to show you how you take all of these ideas and these principles and actually turn it into running apps. So thank you very much, everyone.